Dear DreamWorks, you don't know me, everyone knows you. I'm a young artist full of ideas, and this video is out on YouTube because I was so filled up with them that I was about to throw up. I didn't know how to reach you, and you probably have an email address or something, but I found it easier this way. After watching your most recent movie, Puss in Boots 2, I was instantly captivated by not only your amazing style of animation, but your new villain, the wolf. I didn't know how to explain it, but my mind made some connections with some stories my parents told me to go to sleep when I was a kid, and the movie I was watching as a young adult. Here's what I thought of. When I first saw the wolf, an idea popped in my head. You like working with old tales characters, like Goldilocks and Jack Horner, by reworking their look and personality to fit your stories. Following this idea, I then thought, what stories also include the wolf as a villain? Well, if you hadn't already guessed, there are two popular tales where the big bad wolf is present, The Little Red Riding Hood and The Three Little Pigs. So, just after getting back from the theater, I got to work. By inspiring myself from your Goldilocks design and the medieval theme of your world, I started the design of the Little Red Riding Hood with a look similar to the thief in Clash Royale. I drew her classic red hood, then added some leather boots, then gave her a unique weapon, a handheld ballista. My drawing doesn't really give the impression of it, but I think it would be cool if her character was some kind of sniper, and her weapon could be the 50 caliber of medieval times. Also, since you gave your characters different accents in The Last Wish, like the bears having a British accent, I thought it would fit if Red had a Canadian accent, since some of the best snipers in the world are Canadians, on top of her outfit being red just like the flag. To build a small backstory, she could have once fought the wolf because he killed her grandmother. Doing this would at the same time be a reference to the original tale and give her a motive to fight the wolf. Following the idea of old encounters with the wolf, there are the Three Little Pigs. For these guys, I gave them looks based on their role in their original story. For the first pig, since his house was destroyed first and was the weakest out of the three, I designed him as a young character with no real armor. I also thought it would be cool to give him a hay hat since his house was made of hay. I colored him using a palette of yellow, the color of hay, and for his weapon, I gave him a fork similar to the ones that we use in farms nowadays, but with little details that make him resemble a weapon. For his personality traits, of course, he will be the most cocky and troublemaker of the three. I gave him a bottle of alcohol to make him look interesting. This could also be a hint to his personal story. For the second pig, his design was pretty evident. In the tale, his house is made out of wood, and he was the second to be taken down by the wolf. With this idea in mind, I gave him a sort of lumberjack look. To differentiate him from the others, I added a mohawk hairstyle and gave him an axe, since these are the tools used to cut said wood. I tried to color him using forest colors, so green was my main option, since drawing him entirely brown would be pretty ugly. In the tale, his house was weaker than the brick one, but harder than the hay one, so I then gave him some pieces of armor. For interesting details, I gave him a gold ring piercing his ear and a smoke pipe, which could be an element of backstory. His personality could be greedy and insolent, like a young thief that only wants money and listens to no one. Finally, for the last pig, his design was a bit more complicated. In the original tale, he's the only one whose house wasn't destroyed by the wolf. Following that idea, I built him around the tank characters, a big dude with a heavy armor. His weapon of choice could also be a heavy one, and one that can destroy brick walls, a giant hammer. I colored him red, using the palette of real-life bricks, and gave him some scars, indicating that this guy has learned a lot the hard way. Speaking of learning, it would be interesting if his backstory involved him defending his home multiple times from the wolf, and he will have to train harder and harder to beat this villain. Being the tanky one in the group, I also gave him a giant circular shield reminiscent of the Viking ones, and speaking of Vikings, the accent of all three pigs could be a close one to the Nordic languages. Their backstory could be that they once lived on a small island in the middle of the sea, but the wolf came and killed everyone. Then they escaped from the island, but the wolf never ceased to run after them. Then one day, the third pig built a home solid enough to resist the never-ending attacks of the wolf, and it was their turn to run after him. And now, just to follow the same idea of The Last Wish where the wolf was kind of the side villain, there is a true villain needed here. I then scratched my head trying to find a villain in the old tales that I used to hear falling asleep, and it hit me. I had found a villain that, to my knowledge, no companies has yet to use in their movies and shows. A villain that is pretty much the definition of madness and gore. I present to you Bluebeard. I was surprised to find that there isn't a lot of info on the internet about this story, but I found the essential. In the original tale, he is a torturous monster who traps women in his jail basement and does whatever he wants to them. Following this jail-type environment, I designed him as a kind of executioner since it is the closest to medieval jailkeeper. I gave him the kind of noble hairstyle, blue of course, and gave him a heavy armor. His weapon of choice is naturally a giant axe, following this executioner theme. I added some details like a lamp and a hook to make him more interesting to look, but overall, he looks like a beast. His accent should also be the one of every villain in movies, Russian. I'm not good with story building, but I have an idea for a plot that could link every characters from your universe, including Shrek, Poe, and any other characters. Bluebeard being the villain, he could be searching for a magic feather used to write the tales. To write said tales, there could also be a magic book and magic ink. If Bluebeard manages to gather all three of these objects, he could rewrite the tales to his liking, or in the same idea, erase the other tales, making him the only character left to rule. Then comes the good guys. They try to stop him, they fail, but then hope rises and they beat him. Classic villain-hero battle. But the twist here is that even all the heroes combined, they can't defeat him. Then comes the wolf. He is the only one strong enough to defeat him, and they begin a massive fight where even the Red Riding Hood and the three not-so-little pigs join in. This will be epic. I'm new to this YouTube type of presentation, so I don't really know how to make an outro, but if you've watched until the end, I appreciate it. It took a lot of time to bring this project to the world, and my final request is, apart from you subscribing, is you helping me make this video blow up so that DreamWorks notices and we get to see a sequel to The Last Wish.